1.1 billion has been spent to get 28 players in. Now, our little graphic here, we will have 18 of the ones that are at Stamford Bridge right now. But Janusz and Ryan have to decide, do they fall into one of four categories? Great move, holding out hope, not looking good, or a mistake. And this is on the back, Ryan, of an article that you have written. Just explain a little bit about that article.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially what we're doing here. The premise was that Todd Boehly, the new ownership, took over when Chelsea were in a pretty good phase, right? They won the Champions League the year before. They weren't as good as City and Liverpool, but they were one of the other best teams in the world. They were somewhat unfortunate maybe to not beat Real Madrid in the Champions League. They were just one of the best teams in the world. And then the new ownership's mentality was, we don't care. We have to completely revamp this team. They have completely revamped this team. Thiago Silva will really be the only player on the field on Sunday that was a part of the previous great Chelsea team. So what have they actually gotten from this was kind of my idea. And, you know, as you alluded to earlier, they got 10th place out of it so far.
It's like a Zoom meeting with these graphics and this layer, just expecting a dog or a cat to appear in the background of either Janusz or Ryan. So let's get started with this one. Ryan, I'll give you the American goalkeeper or the goalkeeper who was at New England Revolution, Georgia Petrovic, to begin with. Which of the four? We'll take it alternately. So there's 18, you get 9 each. You can start, Ryan, with the former Revs goalkeeper. Which topic and which category are you putting Petrovic in?
I'm going to actually put him in not looking good. He was probably the best shot stopper MLS has ever seen. He's been okay at Chelsea. I think he's been maybe a little below average when it comes to shot stopping. He's become the starter, I guess the de facto starter recently. But yeah, his performance hasn't been the kind where you see him between the pipes and you go, okay, this is our keeper for the next 15 years.
Janusz, what are you doing with Robert Sanchez?
Well, I was a little bit surprised. I think Petrovic has done well. I mean, good at penalties, saved one. I think he may come in handy in the final. But I think for a player to come in and not expected to see the pitch for a long, long time, I think he's challenging Robert Sanchez right now. Obviously, I mean, he's not there yet. But I would say already it's a great move because they can't lose on that, given the money that they spent for him. Holding out hope maybe, but to say he's not looking good, that's a bit of a stretch, I think, for me. So they'll duke it out. Ultimately, Robert Sanchez may be the number one, but I would probably put Robert Sanchez in that category that Ryan put in at first before Petrovic.
Okay, so you each get your choice. You cannot argue as far as where the player is put by the other person, although, as Janusz has done, you can put a case as to why you think it might not be in the right place. For Malo Gusto, Ryan, 30 million was spent to get him from Lyon. Where does he go in your categories?
I think this is one of the few great moves. I might change the category to solid moves, good moves, rather than great, but that's our most positive category. They needed a backup to Reece James because Reece James is always injured. Gusto's incredibly young. He's played basically every minute since Reece James got hurt, and I think he's played reasonably well, wasn't super expensive, could be on the team for the next decade, and it wouldn't surprise me.
Wesley Fofana, Janusz, 80 million, a lot of money. Where does he go?
Well, I mean, if it's not for injuries, I'm gonna say holding out hope because I think he's a very good center back. Where did he come from? Leicester. I mean, he was tremendous. The moment he came in, he got injured. Right when he came back, it was indifferent a little bit. So I mean, because he's so injury prone, that's where I have to put him. If he's healthy, I still think he's one of those that challenges for the starting spot. So let's just put him there. I haven't given up on him.
38 million for Badiashile from Monaco, Ryan. There's four categories. He's only allowed to go in one. Which one?
Let's throw him in holding out hope too. He's played about a third of the minutes since joining the team, which isn't necessarily what you want from your center backs, especially when one of your other center backs is a 39-year-old who doesn't seem to be a part of the club's long-term plans, obviously. But he's quite young, especially center backs tend to peak a little later. So I don't think we can write Badiashile off.
Janusz, if 65 million for Cucurella isn't a mistake, then why should he be in any of the other three categories?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to, I mean, from time to time, he still comes up with a game, but when you spend that kind of money, and you have this sort of competition, because let's be honest, I mean, if you look at on that, left-hand side, Chilwell is an excellent player. He's had injuries, but you already see the quality he has got, and I know Cucurella play on the right-hand side, but we just talked about Malo Gusto, who's absolutely outstanding, and I agree with you, Ryan. I would put him in a great move if there was a category there, because he may play ahead of Reece James when it's all said and done. Then you see Cucurella. Where do you put him there? So, I hate the mistake, but I mean, for that kind of money, you almost have to put him there, don't you?
Last week against Manchester City, for a long spell in that game, I thought Disasi was absolutely outstanding. Now, he's had his moments, Ryan. 45 million from Monaco. Overall, what have you made of him?
Yeah, as I said earlier, would I categorize it specifically as a great move? Maybe not, but good move. So let's throw him in great move. He's played more minutes, or a higher percentage of the minutes, than any other player signed in the Boehly era. And like, for a move to be good, you need your players to play. I know maybe that's a little bit of a low bar for these, but he's been a pretty much play every game starter since they signed him. So compared to everything else, it's certainly a positive.
On to the midfielders now. Carney Chukwuemeka. If we had an hour, I would love to be able to get more in depth with these, but because we don't, we're on to the midfielders, Janusz. Carney Chukwuemeka was only 18 million from Villa. What have you made of him, in which category?
Yeah, I mean, coming off the bench, he's still varying. What's he, 20? Something like that. 18? What did you say? How old? I lose so many young players, but I still think that you give him time. I'm holding out hope for him. I think he's a quality player, can change the game coming off the bench, gives you energy. I'm fine with him.
Okay. Ryan, Leslie Ugochukwu. Even better if you pronounce it correctly. Ugochukwu from Rennes, 27 million. Struggled to make that much of an impact. What's he done when he's had the chance?
Yeah, I think I'd throw him in not looking good, just so we have a little bit more of a harsh grading system. I think, he's quite young. He could still turn it around, but he was a little more expensive than some of the other players around his same age, and just hasn't had any impact at all on Chelsea because he's barely played.
Romeo Lavia, 62 million, Janusz, from Southampton. He's been injured quite a bit as well. So where are you putting him?
I'm holding out hope. I think he's a very good player. There's a reason why so many teams went after him. Liverpool was obviously one of them. He basically hasn't played the entire season, right? I mean, so it's difficult to put him anywhere but in a place where I think that when healthy, when he gets run of play, I think he's a strong player on both sides of the ball. I don't see a problem with that. And not seeing him play, it'd be very harsh to put him anywhere but in that category.
Ryan, you get the second most expensive player that they've signed, Moises Caicedo. What you got?
I'd put him in holding out hope as well. He's played a lot. I think he's been fine. It's probably been oversold just because he is a little clunky in possession, so he has some moments that don't look great. But I think he's been what he was for Brighton. It's just that they made him the second most expensive midfielder ever. You can't convince me that he's the second greatest midfielder to ever play. He's not even close to the second greatest midfielder in the world right now, let alone on his own team. So could he eventually live up to that fee? Possibly, but hasn't even come close to it yet.
Janusz, a little caveat here with both Caicedo and the player that you've got to put in a category, Enzo Fernandez. It wasn't their choice to pay that amount for them. That was the amount that was paid, but it's the millstone around their neck. Well, that's that boy that cost 116. That's that boy that cost 121. So where are you putting Enzo?
Listen, I'm an Enzo fan. Everybody knows that. He's a great move. You can say it's a great move that's too expensive, but that's not his fault or anybody else's, right? I mean, sometimes you have to pay for that. And the process of building a young team that I do believe, I continue to say, will come good in time. I think he's a great player. We see what happens. He's got the experience of being the World Cup winner already. I think when all the other pieces fall into place, that's truly when you're going to see the quality of Enzo Fernandez. Because I have a feeling, because of the fact that he's a World Cup winner and because of the price, people expect way too much. It's almost as if Enzo Fernandez is going to go wide, cross it to himself, and score a goal, right? Even though we know that's not necessarily what he does. But I have a feeling that in a season like this, the expectations were so high. And let's not forget, he's still a very young player that's learning. For me, it's still a great move.
On to the forwards. Ryan, you can start with Raheem Sterling. 56 million from Manchester City. What's he done and where should he go?
We're putting him in a mistake. He's played a bunch. I don't think he is an important player for Chelsea. He just has been nowhere close to as good as he was for City, nowhere close to as productive. And they brought him to the team when he was kind of at the tail end of his prime. I know it's crazy to say that about a 27-year-old, but that's how soccer works. And his production has declined each season. He's going to be in his 30s soon. I think a big reason why Chelsea haven't been as good as we might expect is because their sort of biggest investment, or one of their biggest investments among their attackers, just hasn't produced the way that he had for most of his, frankly, incredible Premier League career.
Janusz, let's go back to last January, 2023's transfer window, and Mykhailo Mudryk was nearly an Arsenal player, but in the end, he went to Chelsea, so they got Trossard. Mudryk, what about him?
Well, he's a mistake, obviously. You have to wonder about his mentality as well. I mean, first and foremost, I feel for him because by the sounds, he himself didn't want to go to Chelsea. He wanted to go to Arsenal, and obviously it didn't happen for him. He's gotten many opportunities right now, perhaps too early on a team that's not performing well. That's never easy. So I look at him and just wonder, I mean, when is the time that he's going to come good? And is he going to continue to even get those opportunities? It seems to me that, at Chelsea, although they won't admit it, I think Pochettino kind of sees now that he's probably not going to get the time that he felt. And given the amount of money that was spent on him, you have to do something with a player like that. You're almost forced to move him. So unfortunately, it's a mistake, but one that could have been foreseen by Chelsea. So I don't feel bad for them.
Okay, 4 to go. Ryan and Nkunku, 60 million from RB Leipzig. Where's he going?
We're going to put him in not looking good also. Obviously, he's been injured for most of the season. He was incredible for RB Leipzig, but we do know that there's a recent history of players struggling to make the transition, especially attacking players from the Bundesliga to the Premier League. And also, he's just barely played this year. And as much as we can look to the future with these players, this is a year of Christopher Nkunku being on Chelsea where he's done nothing. So that, you don't get that back. So I think my expectations for him are lower, I guess, than what they were when they signed him.
I think your expectations and your grading is certainly harsher than it was just 10 minutes ago when we started that, because I'm sure there'd be some that would hold out hope for Christopher Nkunku, given his injury history. However, the grading system, you've got him in not looking good. Janusz, Noni Madueke, 35 million from PSV.
Holding out hope. I like him. I've liked him from the beginning. There's certain Marquez that introduces very good one-on-one, can play on both flanks, and again, you have to go back to the inconsistency. I think once there's stability, once there's a clear lineup. When I say clear lineup, your key players, maybe the 7, 8 key players. This is a player that's going to either from the start or from the bench give you that something extra special. So I've been okay with him. Early in the season, I saw the things that I wanted to see. Then I gave up on him just a little bit, but he stayed the course. I think he's good enough to be there.
2 to go. Nicholas Jackson, I've commentated on him plenty times at Villarreal. He wasn't really played as a striker. He was played coming in off the left-hand side, but obviously with Nkunku out hurt, he has played as a striker quite a bit. Ryan, how's he done?
Yeah, this might surprise some people. I'm putting him in great move. He obviously has missed a ton of high-profile chances, but to me, a striker missing chances is a striker who's eventually going to start scoring goals. I'd much rather have the guy who's missing chances than the one who's not getting them. On top of it, even with all the missed chances, he's at about a goal. He's a little above a goal and assist every other game. He's 23. He costs around 35 million. Every team in the world would pay 35 million for an attacking player that scores or assists a goal every other game. I think we can get lost in some of the high profile misses and kind of miss sort of what they paid for Jackson, how young he is. And then I think that the fact that he's getting all of the chances speaks to a higher potential of production for him going forward as well.
Okay, interesting grading. Janusz, that's the place, a great move that I thought Cole Palmer would end up, not Nicholas Jackson. Where have you got Cole Palmer?
Yeah, I mean, he looks the part. He's such a young player right now. You know, physically, still, I think he's going to grow into the game, and obviously a creative player. I kind of compare him just a little bit, not at the same level, but to Martin Odegaard, isn't he? Because he's going to have to. They're going to have creative players. When you look at Caicedo, when you look at Enzo Fernandez, they're more physical type of players, box to box if need be, and of course capable of creativity, especially Enzo Fernandez. But I think, you know, that X factor that Cole Palmer has with that left foot coming inside, able to finish, able to deliver a very good cross. The numbers are absolutely outstanding for a team that's in the 10th place in the league, for a player that just came over. And really, I mean, you know, look at all the big names and the amount of money spent on some of these players. So you have to put him in great move so far. I hope he continues to develop.
Okay, so of the 18 players, of the 28 that have been signed for $1.1 billion, those that are still at Stamford Bridge right now and not away out on loan, we've got 5 of them in great move. We've got 6 that we're holding out hope for. We've got 4 that's not looking good, and we have 3 that are mistakes. My thanks to Janusz Mihalik, to Ryan O'Hanlon, and earlier to James Ollie. Just a reminder, Sunday, the Carabao Cup final on ESPN Plus. Our coverage begins at 9 o'clock Eastern, with the game kicking off at 10. Should be a good one. They met a couple of years ago. It went all the way to penalties.